In this video, I want to show you how the plantation mentality is still alive and how it's negatively affecting the Black community. What I want to start off doing is going over some information with you, and then I will come back and talk to you. Blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. Abigail Cochee. Introduction. Colorism is defined as the practice of favoring lighter skin over darker skin. Grant 2020. Before unrevealing the social introduction, colorism is defined as the practice of favoring lighter skin over darker skin. Grant 2020. Before unrevealing the social implications and effect of colorism, we must analyze the creation. During slavery, the enforcement of the one drop rule caused all Black people to be viewed the same in the eyes of the law. However, slave owners and figures of society devised tactics to disrupt the harmony within the Black community. This method consists of separating individuals based on various skin tones, hair textures, and facial features. For instance, lighter skinned slaves were afforded more resources and was assigned more duties that placed them indoors and in direct contact with their white slave masters. This is where the modern day term house Negroes stem from. In comparison, darker skinned slaves were relegated to labor intensive tasks outdoors in the open field and sun. Due to the various spectrum of labor, animosity and resentment started to develop between groups of slaves. Not only did slave master create difference in labor, but whites also manufactured terminology to distinguish African ancestry. The term mulatto and quadroon were key terms used to separate individuals of African ancestries. Due to the practice, heritage, light skin, black contain. Due to the practice, white heritage, light skinned blacks contain more economic value. Since light skins were viewed as smarter and superior to dark skinned blacks, they were provided with easier access to education, manumissions from slavery, and acquisition of land and properties. Make no mistake, persons of light skin complexions were still classified as slaves, meaning they were still in bondage. Although labor were vastly different, light skinned individuals still faced discrimination. It is for this reason the topic of colorism is not widely talked about. If not explained correctly, the underlying message of this topic can be misconstrued as lighter skinned people do not experience the hardship of racism or prejudice. Wilder 2010. As a result of the newfound realization of privilege after the abolition of slavery, lighter skinned blacks continue to set themselves apart from their darker counterparts by socializing, marrying, and procreating with one another. Wilder 2020. An example of the following were seen in creating of exclusionary social clubs and society. Historians have termed organization as such blue vein society. To be accepted into a blue vein society, one had to pass the brown paper bag test. This test consists of comparing an individual's skin tone to the color of a paper bag. If the prospective person was not lighter or as light as the bag, he or she was not granted membership into the organization. Another tactic used was observing if the prospective individual possessed skin tones light enough to see the blue of the veins, hence the name blue vein societies. Members of these societies proclaim acceptance into the organization was solely based on character. Many began to acknowledge all members were of a lighter tone. In response, Blue Vein members deny allegation of, as, of exclusivity. In fact, they declare if all the members are truly light skinned, it is because such person has better opportunity for character development and personalities. As a result of this asinine cover up, the self worthiness of dark skinned individual became hindered. Dosky 2019. Psychologists John R.P. French and Bertram Raven term instance as such as reward power. Reward power is defined as the ability to compensate another for their compliance. It is based on the perception a higher figure has the means of granting a certain reward. In the case of Blue Vein Society, members extended power in the Black community by rewarding certain individuals with lighter appearances. In essence, if a person was light skinned, they was giving the reward of acceptance into the organization with a plethora of opportunities to better themselves. Not only were they granted entrance, but the individuals would receive the feeling of belonging and sorority and superiority. Notable societies that use colorist methods are the Divine Nine Greek sororities. Alpha Kappa Alpha and Delta Sigma Theta, both the stated Black sororities, were the most well known Greek organization for Black women. In fact, the modern day societies, these sororities are still the most recognized organization in Divine Nine. In the 19th century, light skinned women were classified as classy, elegant individuals where dark skinned women were portrayed as tough, uncivilized individuals. Alpha Kappa Alpha was notorious for being inclusive to only light skinned women. This was accomplished by using the method of the brown paper bag test. In response to not granted membership to darker women, Delta Sigma Theta was created. Notable historic and modern day characteristics of Alpha Kappa Alpha are elegance, beauty, vanity, and perfection. For Delta Sigma Theta, stereotypes of members are rough, defiant, and ghetto. The range of the attributes stems from the colorist history of these sororities as a result of Alpha Kappa Alpha being open to light skin and Delta Sigma Theta being created for dark skin. Watch the Yard 2018. Bag test letter from 1928 addresses Black fraternities and sorority colorism at Howard University. While shadows of colorism still exist within the culture of African American fraternities and sororities in the United States, there was a point in which it was brutally clear that certain organizations took their hue of one's skin into account before giving them a chance to pledge. We have all heard stories of the practice of fraternities and sororities only allowing members with skin colors lighter than a brown paper bag to gain admission into the bonds and proof that color lines and boundary were strong and present can be seen by simply comparing the intake photos of the members of Alpha Kappa Alpha and Delta Sigma Theta from the first half of the 20th century. As you can see with the information I went over, that was one of the tactics used on the plantation with the slave owners that allowed them to continue to have discord between darker skinned Black people and lighter skinned Black people. So it was no unity or loyalty when it came to Black people on the plantation. The lighter skinned Black people was treated better, so they had more of a loyalty towards the slave masters, slave owners, than they did to their own color, to their own people. And then even after the slavery ended, they was no longer on plantation. They still had, the lighter skinned black people still had that mentality of I'm better than the darker skinned black people. They came up themselves with the brown paper bag test. They did not want to associate with, marry into, or just be around darker skinned black people. So if your skin complexion was darker than a brown paper bag, there was things that you was kept out of being a black person. So you not only a darker skinned black person, not only still experience racism and segregation with white people, they also experience segregation and racism with the lighter skinned black people. So it was on two fronts. They couldn't get certain jobs with white people because they was black. They could not get certain jobs working with or besides light-skinned black people because they was too dark. So they had it hard on both ends. With the lighter skinned black people, once they started going to college, you see with the fraternities and the sorority, they had that same mentality. They did not want to let dark skinned black people into sororities and fraternities. They wanted to keep them separate because, once again, light skinned black people thought they was better, and they wanted the wealth, they wanted the education, and they wanted everything they felt that they light skin could give them over darker skinned people. Now when you look at what's going on now in society, that mentality is still there, it's still underlying. So even though the Divine Nine, the sorority, they're all kind of united and they're working together and they keep everyone else out, they still have that hierarchy within those sororities and fraternities, where the lighter skinned black people are still looked at as being better than the darker skinned black people. But now it's more about education and money than so-called skin color. So they keep everyone, if you're not part of a fraternity or a sorority, the Divine Nine, you're not good to them. They leave you out. They don't want you to be a part of certain things. If you were to go for a job and there was someone that was a fraternity member, a sorority member, and they had an opportunity to hire you who's not in a fraternity or sorority compared to someone who is, they're going to always choose them. Even if they're not in their same sorority or fraternity, they're not going to look at your ability to do the job, what your skill sets are. They're going to look at you're not part of their society, so they're not going to hire you. So they still outcast, which a lot of times, if you think about it, who do not go to college? A lot of times low income black people do not go to college because they can't afford it, or they feel that it's useless. And if they do go to college, it could be just a community college, which is not a bad thing, or they're not trying to join a fraternity or a sorority. They're just going there to get their education. So they're still going to be excluded and looked down upon. So you see this when Spike Lee made his movie School Days. That was one of the subjects that he touched on in that movie, how the sororities and the fraternity carried themselves and how they looked down on everyone else, especially if they was darker than them. So everyone else who's looking at Kamala and feel that she's for black people, even though she's not black, and they feel that she's for black people, now you understand why these men like Steve Harvey, these men like Ricky Smiley, and all these other men are riding so hard for her, because of that hierarchy. They see she's part of the Divine Nine, she's part of the sorority, and her skin color is light. Even though she's not black, but her skin color is light, so they're fawning all over her because they're looking at, we can get power, we can get position if she is the president of the United States. They don't care about the neighborhood and they don't care about the country. So when you're sitting there as a black person, you're thinking about casting your votes and you're looking at, oh, she would be the first black woman in the White House. Oh, she's going to look out for us. Or the black people who's asking the question, what is she's going to do for black people? She's already showed you what she's going to do for black people, nothing. And if she becomes president of the United States, she's going to continue to do exactly what she's doing for black people, absolutely nothing. The only people that she's going to be looking out for are people that are lighter skinned, who she doesn't see as being ghetto, or her fraternity or sororities don't see as being degenerate, ignorant, or ghetto, she's going to look out for those people. Why do you think she's allowing all these lighter skinned people into this country, taking the position, taking the money, and taking the housing that would have went to the black community that was supposed to be geared towards black community? All these immigrants that's coming in, they're not going into middle class, they're not going into upper middle class, and they're not going into white rich neighborhoods, they're going into black neighborhoods. So keep thinking that this woman is on your side. Keep thinking that all these fraternities and sororities are looking out for your best interest just because they have the same skin color as you. That mentality of being on the plantation is still there. The only thing you have to do is wake up and open your eyes to it. So what I want to do now is show you some videos. And once I show you the videos, I'm going to come back and talk to you.
Now let's move on to Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton, I knew, again, back to the mid to the late 70s, the way I originally met him. And by the way, he was associated with other guys in my life. A guy in particular by the name of Danny Pagano, who was with another family, but he was a soldier in that family. And Al Sharpton used to answer to him. So I met Al because I was associated, my dad was associated with a company called Spring Records in the record business. Roy and Julie Rifkin were the two owners. And they used to engage Al Sharpton to bring them black talent to their record label. And they would actually pay him for it. He was kind of a gun for hire. Al, go out and get me some people, some of your black talent, bring it to the record company. If we sign them, we'll pay you for it. So that's how I originally met Al. And if you met Al back then, you wouldn't recognize him. He was pretty heavy set, used to wear warm-up suits, had long hair, gold chains around his neck. He was a character. I don't know how much of a reverend that he was, but he was certainly a character. So we became friendly during that time. Two instances in particular with Reverend Al that I can talk about. One, I had a security guard union that was under my control. A guy by the name of Danny Cunningham operated that union, but it was under my control. Danny was with me. And we had a plan to unionize the security guards in Atlantic City. First, the restaurant and bartender workers, we were going to unionize them also. But the real serious play was with the security guards under Danny Cunningham. At that time, Nicky Scarfa, he had some influence in Atlantic City. I met up with Nicky. By the way, many of you have asked me about him. I know his reputation, pretty violent. He and I got along well. I like Nicky a lot. We met with him a couple of times and always got along great. So we were going to unionize them. And what we needed people to picket the hotels. So I go to Al. I said, Al, I need your help. You're going to round up some of your crew, and we're going to picket the hotels in Atlantic City so that we can get the security guards to unionize there. And I'm going to quote this. I don't want to be offensive, but I'm going to quote what Al Sharpton said to me, and you could take this to the bank. He said to me, Michael, you pay me good, and I'll have a few busloads of use the N word, there day and night picketing that building. That was Al Sharpton. He was a gun for hire. Yes, he used his people at that time to make money. That's what Al was all about back then, okay? I'm not going to comment on what he is today. He says he's transformed his life. In many ways, I see, some of the things that he did back then, he seems to be doing today. I'm going to leave it at that because I'm not involved with him anymore. Another situation with Al. I was a subject of an undercover operation called shadow boxing. The FBI had put an undercover operation together where they were trying to see how organized crime was infiltrating professional boxing. The targets of that investigation were Don King and myself, because they knew that I had some influence in professional boxing. My dad did before me, and a lot of my associates did. We were heavily involved in the game. So they put an undercover operation together where an undercover FBI agent by the name of Victor Guerrero, that's the name that he used, came and approached me. And they had taken a guy out of prison by the name of Reggie Barrett. He was in prison, but he was closely associated with Muhammad Ali. So he knew the boxing game. So these two posed as two people that were wealthy that wanted to get into the boxing business. So they had this undercover operation under me for about 7 or 8 months, on me for 7 or 8 months, where they were actually wiring themselves up, taping themselves up. They posed that they were once South American drug dealers, but they hadn't been dealing with drugs anymore. But they had several $1 million in a bank account that I was able to verify. The FBI set up a bank account in the Midwest. They put about 15 million in it, or said there was 15 million in it. And I was around these people for about 7 or 8 months. I didn't trust them 100% yet to bring them to Don King. I was trying to feel them out, trying to see where they really were all about, because I can only trace them back so far. Anyway, they were good. They got me fairly comfortable. After about 8 months, what I learned later on, they had about 80 tape recordings on me. But during this whole time, I brought Al Sharpton into this. I introduced Sharpton to them, and I said, this is going to be the guy who's going to set up the meeting with Don King when I tell him we're ready to do that. So Al Sharpton was the go-between between King and myself. By the way, everything I'm telling you here was highly publicized. I think 48 hours, Brian Gumble, Real Sports did a whole 15, 20-minute deal on it. It was all over the newspapers. Sports Illustrated did a cover story on it called Shadowboxing. So what I'm telling you now, you can verify. Everything I tell you, you can document at some point. This is all a known fact. So at the appropriate time, I say, Al, okay, I'm comfortable enough to bring these guys to Don King. Let's do it. So Al sets up the meeting with Don King. Don King was associated with some of my mob affiliates over in Cleveland, so he understood the game, the business, so on and so forth. So we go to visit Don King in his offices in Manhattan at the time. Al Sharpton was there. Before I bring Reggie Barrett and Victor into the office with Don, I went and seen Don myself. I said, Al, excuse us for a minute. I want to talk to Don alone. So I said, Don, look, I verified that these guys got $15 million minimum in the bank. They were drug dealers at one time. They claimed they cleaned up their act. I've had them around me for 8 months. I'm fairly comfortable with them, but I cannot trace them any further back than that. So here's what I want you to do. They want to be into the business. They want to invest their money. I know if they're legit, we can use it. We can make some money. But today, I want you to keep everything above board. Don't say anything out of the way. No shady deals. Keep everything straight, 100%. He says to me, I got it, Michael. I bring Victor and Reggie in. We have a meeting. Don is perfect. Explains to them the fight game, the whole bit. Tells them how they get involved, how their investment would be used, the whole bit, right? And we leave. Now, in the interim, okay, because the next point for me was, okay, show me the money. I want you to put it up in a mutual account so that I can show Don that we have it, and we'll take it from there. The FBI was a little bit reluctant about doing that because I don't know if the money really existed or they just made a phony account to verify that it was there. That kind of put a stall on the investigation. But in the interim, Al Sharpton goes up to their offices, Reggie and Victor Guerrero. Remember, Victor Guerrero is an undercover FBI agent. His real name is Victor Quintana, but back then it was Guerrero. And in the meeting, Al Sharpton proposes a drug deal to them. He's got a big cowboy hat on, he's smoking a cigar, and he's talking about drugs in some way. This is all on videotape, and it's been seen on Brian Gumbel's Real Sports. So whatever I'm telling you, again, it's all documented. And it was as a result of this meeting that Al Sharpton became an informant afterwards, because the government came to him and said, hey, you're trying to propose a drug deal, and they turned him into an informant at that time. 100%. Al denies it, and then he admitted, then he denies it. Look, you got to give Al credit. I mean, he is a good talker. Look where he is now visiting, or he was visiting with Obama. He's made a name for himself. So, hey, if he really has changed his life, who am I to doubt that? Good.
I got labeled as difficult, my husband and I, and my husband is Sydney, who happens to be my manager. We got labeled as difficult because I said one word, and that was no. Now, I said no to some very powerful people. I said no to Oprah Winfrey. I said no to Tyler Perry. I said no to Lee Daniels. And I said no to Lionsgate. And the difficulty came in when people that look like me, like Oprah, Tyler, Lee Daniels, and I got to put my brother Steve on the list. Y'all knew I was not wrong. Each one of you said to me, Monique, you're not wrong. And when I heard you go on the air and you said, my sister done burnt too many bridges, and there's nothing I can do for her now. Steve, do you know how hurt I was?
But see, Mo, now let me give you this. Because you and I had this conversation, I thought you went about it wrong. See, I felt that you had done yourself a disservice by the way you chose to go about it.
Tell me how I went about it.
I was cool with you with your deal with Netflix. I was cool with you. The two problems that we had. Number one, the boycott of Netflix.
Yes.
We never gave people a point of action. Okay, if we're gonna boycott, are we gonna not get subscriptions? Are we gonna turn it off? Are we gonna go down there and get signs? The second point, what was coming to me was this problem that you had in Netflix is rich people problems. Because they looking at us going, you talking about you didn't get millions. Well, you got this, you ought to be cool.
But when you say, Mo, it's the way you want about it. And I want to explain that, and I thank you for saying that. Inequality is devastating, and it's extreme. And when people said, Monique, do you think calling a boycott was extreme? You damn right. But isn't inequality extreme? So we've got to get to a place where we're unafraid to say it out loud.
Okay.
What I would have loved, what I would have appreciated from my brother was had you picked up the phone before you went on the air and said, Monique, you've burned too many bridges and there's nothing I can do. See, I would have appreciated had my brother called me up and said, baby, let's talk. Because you doing that was a part of me being difficult.
But not before that, though.
Yes, baby.
Remember the moment on stage?
Oh, yes.
See, now that
right was a
there.
wonderful moment.
No,
Steve.
it wasn't.
Oh, my goodness.
No, it wasn't.
That was one of those moments.
See, no, it wasn't.
That Richard Pryor whispered in my ear and said, say it. You say it.
Richard
Because
Pryor did
I'm
not
gonna
tell you to say that.
Yes,
with
he
your
did.
crazy ass.
Oh, baby. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I do not regret, as I said on the Steve Harvey show, I do not regret one moment of that night on that stage.
No, in case you don't know, Mo told Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey,
Tell him.
and Lee Daniels to suck her private parts.
Not my private parts.
Well, you said if I had one, I want them three to suck my private parts.
Yeah.
It wasn't private parts on stage. So now, then I went, I quit breathing. I quit breathing for you.
I didn't.
What happened to you, Mo, was when you made that statement, the narrative got flipped. It wasn't about Netflix no more. It wasn't about Netflix no more. The attention was all off of where we needed to go. Huh?
That was before Netflix.
So good. So now when you bring up Netflix, it doesn't get no win, but you done just said this to these three people. And these three people, not because they're powerful, but because of who they've come. And what happens is, I told you, we can't cure darkness with more darkness.
What we can do is cure it with comedy. And what I'm not going to do, Steve, I'm never, ever going to waver from my comedy show on that stage. That's my gift, and that's my freedom. And what happens is when you allow people to start taking your freedom and your gift and making it become what makes them comfortable, we then lose. When you called me with the morning show on the phone, I said to you, Steve, my family is suffering behind this. And y'all know I did nothing wrong. Y'all know my husband did nothing wrong. But none of y'all in real time, was strong enough to go publicly and say, we can't throw our sister under the bus.
Because, Mo, listen to me. We fighting two wars here.
What war?
There's two wars. It's what your issue is, and it's what the perception of the issue is, and the narrative has changed.
See, I'm hearing what you're saying, baby, and I agree with it when the narrative changes. But if all of y'all said, this is the only issue I have with it, baby, when all of y'all said privately, to include Oprah, all of y'all said privately, I've done nothing wrong.
When you tell the truth, you have to deal with the repercussions of the truth. We black out here. We can't come out here and do it any kind of way we want to. Listen to me. Your husband can't be the Sydney that he really is out here.
Let me tell you something.
That flexing, we
got
to flex a different way. We out here in a game. This the money game. This ain't the black man's game. This ain't the white man's game. This is the money game.
But
we in the money game. And you cannot sacrifice yourself. The best thing you can do for poor people is not be one of them. You cannot help them.
We're in the money game. But let me tell you what the game is before the money game. Before the money game, it's called the integrity game. And we've lost the integrity worrying about the money.
But Mo,
wait a minute.
If I crumble, my children crumble, my grandchildren crumble. I cannot, for the sake of my integrity, stand up here and let everybody that's counting on me crumble so I can make a statement. There are ways to win the war in a different way.
Off-ass question. I am going to freely
lob the basketball so she can slam dunk all these questions? Yes, I'm going to freely sit here and agree. Before y'all start calling my radio show and DMing me, talking about why you ain't asked no hard-hitting questions, that ain't what this is. I'm throwing a lob. This is an alley-oop for a dunk because this administration needs to get the word out of what they're actually doing and what they're actually accomplishing so we can stop all this foolishness about what you're doing for black people. Can't nobody come out with no agenda and call it this for black people and expect to get in the White House. You got to play the game different. Y'all know what this is. So now this next question is another lob.
He said, yeah, I did it, and I'm going to keep doing it. He is promising that he will not ask her any real questions because he doesn't care if black people get our questions in or if we learn more about this lady and what she's got planned for us. No, he's telling us he is not on the side of black people. He's with her. Let that sink in. The Democrats cut the check for his radio show, and Kamala also promised favors for him personally.
I'm glad you asked me to do this, because we've talked many times.
And I'm so glad you've made the time to do it, Steve. Thank you.
I was telling the audience I came from my ranch, and you're very aware of this, and you're going to help me now because you introduced me one of your key people back there.
Yeah, so while Steve told us to stop asking for tangibles, he was begging Kamala for favors backstage to help him. And she didn't tell him no, she agreed to do it. See, this is why these folks can't be trusted. They'll be all in our faces telling us to forget about tangibles. Meanwhile, they getting all the butter biscuits in the back. They will lie, twist, and do whatever to deceive their audience. Him, Ricky Smiley, D.L. Hughley, all of them are in on it together.
Now, me and Ricky Smiley happen to be on the same page. Now, we Q's now, and so is D.L. Hughley. Q's kind of run the airways of black radio.
Okay. All right, Purple and Gold. Okay.
Steve is only confirming what we already know. He said Q's run black radio. That's a black Greek organization for those who don't know. So when you hear folks speaking on these organizations and the Boule sellouts, that's what we're talking about. They will definitely support Kamala for free if they had to because she is in a sorority, but they are still getting tangible benefits from these people. The check isn't getting written out directly to Steve Harvey, but they're cutting a check to his radio show, the Steve Harvey Morning Show. They did the same thing during the pandemic when they got Steve Harvey and Ricky Smiley to convince black people to stick stuff in them. They had no idea what it was. These people are killing the black community. They want to be the leaders so bad, just to march us out on the field like Jim Jones, following Democrat orders.
Once again, as black people, as you've seen in the video, all these people, Al Sharpton, I think he's part of a fraternity, and all these other people, you see they sell out their own black people every time. These people are not Christian because what you have to do to get into a sorority or fraternity, the oath you have to take goes against Christianity and what God said and what the Bible say. So these people are not Christians. So even if they say, oh, I'm Christian, oh, God bless me, look what God did for me, they're not talking about the same God that's in the Bible, because if they did, if they were, they would put God first and not money. They're putting money and power and prestige over God. And so therefore, if that's what they're chasing, they will never look at a poor person because they know you can't do anything for them other than give them a vote, other than believe in them to put them in a position for them to walk all over you. That's the only thing they want from you is to have someone they can stand on as they're crawling across that fence to get to the other side. They're never going to reach back and grab you. All these people that were supposed to be black leaders, were supposed to look out for black people, was supposed to be in certain positions so they can come back and make sure black neighborhoods, black communities, black people was taken care of. If you notice, they never did come back and do what they promised. They kept breaking their promise time after time after time after time again, until black people wake up and see what's really going on and stop running behind these people who do not care about you. Stop running behind these people who have absolutely no intentions on helping you. I want you to think about something. When you seen that video with Steve Harvey talking to Monique, and how Monique said, oh, you called me on the phone in private and you said, oh, you was not wrong, you didn't do anything wrong, why did they not champion for her in public? Look how hard Steve Harvey is championing for Kamala. Look how hard that Ricky Smiling, to the point that he told me, I'm crying for her. Look how hard he's what's the difference between those two? They both are, one we already know is a black woman. The other one claiming to be a black woman. They're claiming that she's a black woman. What's the difference between those two women? One is lighter skinned than the other. One is dark skinned. The other one, they're looking at, if she get in a certain position, she can help us. She can benefit us. She can look out for us. But this one right here, she can't do anything for us. They want her to shut up and fall in line, and Monique won't do what, she didn't do that. So that's the problem they had with her, because what she reminded them of the loud ghetto black girl that they don't want to have anything to do with because she's beneath them. That's the mentality they have. And like I said, when you look at what people do, when you look at who people hang around with, when you look at who people associate with, then a whole picture should appear in front of you of what you're actually dealing with, what you're actually getting. These people do not believe in God. These people do not believe in helping their fellow brothers and sisters who are the same color. They're only looking out for their community, which is the Divine Nine, the sororities. That's the only people they're looking out for. And within those sororities and fraternities, there's still a hierarchy when it comes to skin color. If the lighter people are going to be the ones on the top, and the darker skins are going to be the ones on the bottom. That hasn't changed. Like I said in the Bible, it says there's nothing new in this world. They was doing this during slavery. It hasn't stopped yet, and it's not going to stop. That's the thing we need to realize. That's the thing we need to understand, and stop waiting for these people to come save you. They demonize the Republican Party, and I'm not talking about just Donald Trump. I'm just saying, as far as the Democratic Party, they lie and they demonize the Republican Party because they don't want to lose power and prestige. It has nothing to do with what they're going to do for the people. It has nothing to do with what's going to happen with the country. It's about their power and their prestige that they don't want to lose. They're not going to help anyone. I don't care what color you are. If you're not part of their sorority, if you're not part of their fraternity, they're not looking out for you. They don't care about you. That's why if you see how they was trying to push certain things in the black community, they always try to push negative things in the black community because that's what they think about you. That's what they think about the black community. You're less than. Or should I say we're less than, because I'm not part of that fraternity, sorority, or anything. We're less than. We're ghetto. We're not good enough to sit with them. We're not good enough to be part of their organization. If you want to be along with them, they can make you an honorary sorority member if they accept you, but you have to be willing to bow down to them and their organization and what they believe in. The only person I will ever bow down to is God. And I said it more than one time, and I will continue to say that. Say this: I will put God first over my skin color every day. And some black people would get upset of me saying this. This is why. Why should I be loyal to black people that's not even loyal to their own people? They haven't been loyal when the darker skinned black people wanted to be runaway slaves and leave. Who do you think told on them sometimes when they would get caught? The lighter skinned people in the house. They would tell because they was more closer, and they wanted to be more like the master than the slave, even though they were slaves themselves. So they the one who ran and told, oh, they're planning to leave. They're planning to escape. But then if you think about it, the Underground Railroad would not have been as successful as it was if it wasn't for who? White people. The ones that helped them establish and made the Underground Railroad successful because they was willing to hide these runaway slaves and move them from place to place without them being able to get caught so they can have their freedom. Not the house Negro. They wasn't helping. I'm not going to say all of them, but the majority of them wasn't helping because they liked the prestige they got. They liked the cooning that went on when they told. They like the extra, piece of chicken that they got, or the clean clothes, or extra bath that they got. That's what they wanted. They felt like they was getting more, and they felt that it was better than the darker skinned black people. That has not changed. When you look at society, you can see this for yourself. It has not changed. And then it's another thing that I hear a lot of black people say about black people need to stick together. Why can't black people stick together? And it's not black people who are Christian, who are true Christian, who say I put God first before I put my color first. It's not, those are not the problem. It's the black people who are in these fraternities and sorority, because nothing you say or do will change how they feel. And like I said, they're not God-based. They're not doing things about based on truth, based on facts, or based on justice. They're doing things based on, we're going to feed us. Forget about everyone else. And then it's a lie to say no other race has went against their own race. Black people would not be free if the Civil War hadn't happened, which was white people in the North fighting against white people in the South. They could have easily looked the other way and said, we're not going to worry about them. Black people would not have gotten a vote, black men, when slavery ended, if it wasn't for the white people saying, hey, let's go ahead and change these laws to give them their freedom, make them citizens, and give them the power to vote. So to say that black people are the only black people, the only race who doesn't stick together, you see time and time again when you look at history. I love history, and this is why I love history, because it allows you to see things as they are, not about how people telling you they are, about how things really were back in those days when you do the research for yourself. And you see white people went against white people for black people. White people in the South some of those white people risked their lives and actually died standing up and standing next to a black person. So to say black people are the only people who go against their race, no, black people are the only people who hold down their race. That's the thing. Black people are the only people that will downgrade their race. Black people are the only people that will hold down their race. Black people are the only people that will choose another race over their race, not because they're trying to seek justice. The white people did what they did because they was trying to get justice. The Aborigines, the ones who was willing to fight and kill to help black people get free. No, we're talking about black people who would throw other black people under the bus just so they can get one step ahead. That's the difference. And that's the thing that needs to be spoken about. That is what needs to be talked about, so everybody could shine light on it and know what's really going on. So when you make your decision at the polls as far as who you vote for, you know why you're voting for that person. You know if that person is truly for you or truly against you. You know how that person moves, the people they surround themselves with, how they move. Anybody can have a good speech. Hitler was a good speaker. Jim Jones was a good speaker. That's why all those people end up leaving America, going to Africa and drinking the Kool-Aid, because he was a great orator. So just because you can speak good, or just because you have people around you who could stir up the crowd, don't get caught up in that. Look at the facts. I want to see the facts. I want to know the facts. What are you doing that's truly going to help black people? Like I said, you see these grown men running behind this woman, and they're trying to convince the world that she's black, because they're looking at what can she do for us? How can she benefit the divine nine? What position I can get if she get in the White House? How am I going to benefit? Steve Harvey said with his own mouth, he said with his own mouth that there's more than one way to get to heaven, and we already know Jesus said, I'm the only way. He's the only way. We already know that. Steve Harvey's talking about the things that he got from her. Steve Harvey telling Monique, don't worry about the poor people, because what can they do for you? They can't do anything for you. It's not even about what poor people can do for you. The question should be, what can you do for poor people? He's only worried about himself, and the rest of them are worried about themselves as well. So what you can do to help yourself is stop depending on these people that you already know who has a track record of not helping you. You see Al Sharpton, you see all these other people did absolutely nothing, who was supposed to be black leaders, did absolutely nothing to benefit the black community. All they did was take advantage of them. All they did was use them. All they did was put themselves in power position and did whatever they could to hold other black people down and keep them in a subservient position. So if you want to get better, do better, you're going to have to rise up and move past that. You're going to have to stop basing, I'm going to vote for this person because of skin color. I'm not going to vote for this person because they don't have the same skin color. I'm not going to, I'm going to listen to what everybody else say, but I'm not going to research the facts for myself. You have to start looking at what's really going on. You have to start reading for yourself. You have to start looking at information. These, I will put the link to the information that I went over. I will put those links in there so you can read all that for yourself, because I didn't read everything. You can sit there and read that information for yourself, because it's very important, especially with this election. This election is very important because if you look at the things that Kamala Harris represent, and if you look at the things Donald Trump represent, and then you look at the things that we're supposed to represent as Christians. So you have to make decisions, and also what's going to benefit this country, regardless if you're a Democrat, Republican, or how you feel, black, white, or whatever. What's going to benefit this country? What's going to turn this country around? What's going to have the economy moving forward? You have to look at all that and stop voting based on emotion and start voting based on facts and truth. Once again, the Bible said truth will set you free. And I want to go ahead and share a scripture with you. This is Jeremiah 13:23, King James Version. Can the Ethiopian change his skin, or the leopard his spots? Then may ye also do good that are accustomed to do evil.